Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Our top stories. Presidential elections in Egypt kicks off this Sunday with President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi up for third term. Human rights groups denounce a lack of opposition figures. Warning from the UN, Africa is facing an unprecedented food crisis with 3/4 of the population who can't afford a healthy diet. Take one, action! Villagers in Guinea are learning the cinema ropes by making their own movies. Presidential elections in Egypt are set to take place from December 10 to 12 this Sunday. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is running for a third term despite a 2018 pledge that he would not vie again. He's predicted to win by a landslide, facing no serious opposition candidate, with an election campaign overshadowed by the Gaza war. In Cairo, Justine Babin reports.
In the streets of Cairo, almost nothing indicates that an election will take place from Sunday to Tuesday, aside from the giant portraits of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi hanged on every street lamp and palm tree. 3 other candidates are also running but have been completely overshadowed by state propaganda. Even official media have not been very vocal about this election, with little at stake. All the attention has been going to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict at the Egyptian border, while other important topics, such as the economic crisis, which is expected to worsen in the upcoming months, have not been discussed. For human rights defenders, this election is nothing but a masquerade.
This is not really an election. Of course, it was promising to be more of an election when the process started in August, September. The regime then made it very clear that it's not going to allow any serious challenges, not because it felt that the incumbent, President Sisi, is facing a risk of losing in the ballot box, but because they didn't even want a campaign that would include criticism of the president, especially given the disastrous results of his 10 years in power.
In 2019, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi amended the constitution, allowing him to be re-elected for a third term. Barring any unforeseen circumstances, he should be re-elected until 2030. Last time, he won over 95% of the votes.
Now, a few weeks ago, 18 members of the security forces were killed in Sierra Leone's capital, Freetown, during what the government described as an attempted coup. Today, former President Ernest Bai Koroma reported to police as part of the ongoing investigation. Justice Baidu is in Accra and has been monitoring the situation. So, Justice, what happened this morning?
So, the former President Ernest Bai Koroma, who until 2018 had been president of Sierra Leone for 11 years, had many people in the country say that he was suspected to be one of the people who had been behind the incident that happened on the 26th of November in Freetown. And so he had been invited by the police, and he went in there and had his occasion there. The occasion was not open to the cameras, and he came out and said that he was willing and open to cooperate with the police to ensure that the facts about those behind the instability on the 26th were established. Mr. Koroma had come out to say that he was against the incident that happened on the 26th and had denounced it, but there were many people who support the current President Julius Maada Bio and the ruling party, who accuse him and people in his party of being behind this coup. Their reasoning has been also that there are people who are very close to Mr. Koroma, including a former security aide to himself and people around him that have been arrested and were key members, allegedly, a part of the incident that occurred in the early hours of Sunday, the 26th of November.
Justice Baidu, thank you very much. Live from Accra. Now, a UN report says Africa is facing an unprecedented food crisis. More than 3/4 of the population can't afford a healthy diet, and a fifth are undernourished. This dire situation is in large part due to grain shortages, triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, armed conflict in Africa itself, and climate change. Sam Bradpeace has been digging into some of the details.
The figures from this latest UN report are extremely harrowing. It's estimated that 342 million Africans faced severe food insecurity in 2022, and that 78% of the African population were unable to afford healthy diets. Across nearly every country on the continent, food insecurity has gone up, including in relatively developed economies like here in Senegal, where it's estimated that 11% of the population are severely food insecure. But the situation is much worse elsewhere on the other end of the scale. If you look at places like South Sudan, that rate increases to more than 60%. There are a variety of contributing factors, including armed conflict, climate change, and the lingering impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. The UN report warns that millions more Africans could face hunger in the near future should some of those underlying factors not settle down or be resolved in one way or another.
Just 2 weeks before the elections in DRC, and the Electoral Commission is today asking the presidency to provide aircraft to get voting materials to hard-to-reach areas. The request highlights the logistical challenges to delivering the December 20 vote as scheduled. In 2018, I don't know if you remember, election had been postponed by 1 week, just 3 days before it was set to take place. Election as well in Zimbabwe, this time this Saturday. 9 by-elections amidst a political crisis that has been growing since a group of MPs with the main opposition, Citizens Coalition for Change, had their seats declared vacant. A court ruled on Thursday that most of the CCC contenders could not stand in for Saturday's vote, clearing the way for the ruling ZANU-PF to pick up some seats and move closer to changing the constitution. Rejoice Nguenia is a political analyst.
ZANU-PF has always been desperate for a two-thirds majority. It's only that, the last election, it was very clear that they were not going to get it. The Zimbabwean opposition is very resilient because remember that since 2000, there have been a number of attempts at destabilizing the opposition. It did split in 2005, but it managed to gather itself. The elections that we're looking at on Saturday are based on a recall factor that was invoked by a so-called Secretary General of the opposition party, CCC. The legitimacy of the recall is debatable, but basically the statutory obligation of a recall is still valid.
And now let's get to Burundi. Former Prime Minister Guillaume Bunyoni has just been sentenced to life imprisonment by the country's Supreme Court. He's accused of plotting a coup. Arrested last April, the man, considered the most powerful in the country, pleaded not guilty. Details from our correspondent in the region, Clément Di Roma.
Considered as the second most powerful man in the regime until his arrest last April, Guillaume Bunyoni has been sentenced to the maximum penalty in Burundi, life imprisonment. Dismissed from his position as prime minister a year ago, this powerful general was accused by the public prosecutor of attempting to overthrow the regime and the current head of state, Évariste Ndayishimiye. The justice system also accused him of other crimes, such as illegal possession of weapons, outrage against the president, and illegal interest. At 51, Bunyoni was considered by many as the wealthiest man in the country. The prosecutor also requested the requisition and sale of his 153 houses and 43 vehicles, and he was granted. All his assets will be confiscated. The accused pleaded not guilty in early November at the trial's opening, citing a lack of evidence. Several of his associates have also been sentenced to heavy prison sentences.
And we leave you with a bit of art. The Guinean capital, Conakry, is hosting Ciné Nomade Afrique, a film festival trying to bring back to life the Guinean cinema, including training rural populations in the art of filmmaking. Our correspondents went to visit a village where the local community came together to make their own film. Malik Diakité, Sarah Sako, and Sam Bradpeace.
The peaceful village of Kenya is 120 kilometers away from the hustle and bustle of Conakry. Almost everyone here works in agriculture, But this afternoon, they have abandoned their fields for a very special event. Kenya has been transformed into a film set. A local man is operating the camera, while women from the neighbourhood star on screen. The script was written by villagers just hours before. This is the first time that this community has had access to the world of filmmaking.
The idea is to offer amateurs the chance to collectively produce a film in the space of 3 hours.
The script was written over the course of 2 workshops through a process of participatory writing, before members of the community then stepped up to play the roles. Mama is playing the film's main character, an insolent young woman.
It's the first time I've acted in a film, and I truly loved the experience. I'm really happy.
The highlight of the day was the open-air screening, where villagers had exclusive access to the premiere. This event is one of the many activities organised as part of the Ciné Nomade Afrique Festival, now in its 2nd edition.
The objective is to introduce as many people as possible to cinematography, culture and filmmaking, to allow them to dream about becoming producers, directors and actors.
Classics of African cinema were screened late into the night to inspire those dreams even further.
And that's the end of this edition. Thank you for watching.